Good morning. All right, let's see here. Good morning, everybody. And let's see, we're going to start. We have just kind of a Monday morning smorgasbord for you with a little bit of a deep dive on 311 today. So we're going to talk about what's been happening at our 311 call center and some of the challenges, but also the way they've been stepping up and actually been doing a great job. So here with us is our Director of Information Technology to go over that. Now, let me begin again with some updates from around central New Mexico, and then we'll get into some of the details. So I think first, we got a check in the mail this morning. It actually is more of an email announcement, but we got our $150 million from the federal government. So that is very good news for the city of Albuquerque. Now, a couple of things about that. This is something we fought hard for with respect to all the things that I was doing with the Conference of Mayors, and we wanted actually municipalities to get funding directly, as with counties and and states, other forms of government. Unfortunately, all municipalities were left out other than those greater than 500,000. But, of course, Albuquerque qualifies. So for us, this is very, very good news. And I do want to mention, though, that in some ways it's like getting to sort of first base because we know we have that funding, but there are lots and lots of strings attached. So as we updated on Friday, we don't know yet what all we can expense against that fund. So this may help us through our entire budget challenge, as we're hoping it would, or it may not. So we're going to now have to wait for the rules to become clear over the next sort of 2 weeks. We should have greater clarity. And then we'll understand how helpful this $150 million is. But it's a great way to start out Monday morning for sure for the city of Albuquerque. All right. So, and with that, let's move on a little bit to some other updates from around central New Mexico. So, first, there is a new testing site available. It's at Walmart. This is the Walmart actually up on Wyoming and Academy up in the Heights. And that is a partnership between Quest Diagnostics, Walmart, and the Department of Health. And you can go to Quest's MyQuest online portal that will screen and schedule individuals who meet the CDC eligibility. I drove out to that site yesterday, and it looks ready and in good shape. And you'll see, just so folks know, basically the north end of the parking lot is taken up by sort of a automobile queuing system, so those testing opportunities can take place. And the testing is 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And again, that's at 8000 Academy Road, which is an intersection of Academy and Wyoming. All right, we do want to mention, too, there's new protocols being rolled out by our hospitals with respect to the disinfecting of PPEs. And so there's some details out from the Food and Drug Administration federally on how to disinfect personal protective equipment. And so our 3 hospitals, UNMH, Presbyterian, Lovelace, they're working with their staff and others on how that should work. And we're also looking at educating the public on how to do that too. And so there's information with respect to that available at the different CDC websites. And a lot of it has to do with the use of vaporized hydrogen peroxide and ultraviolet light. And so again, stay tuned or look to our hospitals for details on that or to the CDC's website. Okay, and also want to mention that a lot of Braqueños have done a ton of donating, whether it's masks, homemade or otherwise, or gloves to hospitals and to other essential workers. We just want to thank them. Our city continues to step up in a wonderful way to really be there for folks who need disposable masks and gloves. And so actually, in the properly made homemade mask ones are great too. I know I've been rotating a couple of them that folks have given me that have been working out great. I want to touch a little bit on enforcement over the weekend. I want to mention that actually, at least from a legal enforcement perspective, there were lots of education efforts being done by all our city departments. But by and large, enforcement was in good shape, and we didn't have any citations over the weekend on the APD side. Also, want to mention, I think we've now got all our smoke shops finally closed. So it took them a long time, but when we went through the procedure, I believe now they all are closed. Okay, other than that, we're continuing to use hotels around the city. There's different locations that the city and the state and others are using and for a number of different purposes. These include really self-isolation for folks who've been exposed while they're awaiting testing. And so this is providing a much needed third space. So far, our hotel partners have been able to do that, and that's been very helpful because we haven't had to open up any emergency shelters with respect to that aspect of Corona. Instead, we're able to use this motel voucher system. We're also supplying meals to them. So our senior affairs department and others is helping to supply meals to folks who are in those hotels. And I think now we're at 14,000 meals last week that our senior affairs department delivered. Okay, now I'd like to talk a little bit about our deep dive topic for today. Before I do that, though, I do want to mention our Wi-Fi on Wheels program. Our drive-up Wi-Fi is in operation at locations all over the city. You can either call 311 or you can check out our website for that. And again, lots of them, a dozen or so sites correspond to APS meal sites. And so they're really meant to provide that, link that digital divide for folks who don't have internet available. They can use it in their car as they go pick up their meal as well. And so that's up and running. Homework is due this week, so we're expecting folks to take full advantage of that as needed. Okay, with respect to 311, at a high level, our 311 system, they have been doing a great job trying to answer all the community's questions. No surprise, call volume is up for 311 since Corona hit, 10% increase. And our team, of course, has transitioned to telecommuting, and we're still answering 85% of the calls in less than 30 seconds. And 311 has been able to utilize our new City of Albuquerque coronavirus data hub to also keep the most information, up-to-date information available. And they've been working remotely since mid-March, and so we're doing our best to keep our city workers safe as well. They're doing it from home for the time being, and we haven't seen any major interruptions in service. Since March 11th this year, 5,151 cases have been recorded specifically related to calls for the coronavirus into 311. And so that represents actually only 6.5% of the total call volume. So 311 is very much up and running as they normally would be on all sorts of non-corona related activities. We'll touch on a few of these. A lot of them are traditional with respect to this time of year, spring, solid waste, cleanup, things of this nature. And so folks are calling about a number of things, both essential and essential. I do want to mention for test site information for all things corona, please call 311. Do not call 911. Last week we did have an increase in people calling 911 for testing information. Please do not do that. Call 311. And so that's very important to protect the 911 emergency system as well as utilize a very well-running 311 system. Okay, we're also going to touch on some of the things that we've been able to fix over the last several months, including a major backlog with respect to abandoned vehicles in the system. And some of this was IT related, some of it wasn't. We got a lot of help from our police department and DMD on that, but we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But we were able to clear thousands of unresolved tickets dating back actually like 6-7 years. And so we've now cleaned that out of the system, and we're now able to operate a much more sort of real-time or month-to-month abandoned vehicle notice system. So to talk more about this, I'm going to hand it over to Brian Osterloh, our Director of Information and Technology. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. 311, as you can tell from the numbers we have, is very data-driven service. To give you just a few of those, as Mayor noted, we have seen some significant change in the types of calls that we're receiving, more than 5,000, as Mayor noted, specifically for coronavirus-related information. We are seeing, for some functions, a significant decrease. Transit, since April 1st, 5,273 calls, that's down 17%. Not a surprise because ridership with the changes in schedules is also down. So that follows directly from the use of the system. Non-city general information requests, 3,354 since April 1st. That is up nearly 50% from last year. Again, referrals to the New Mexico Department of Health on coronavirus, and answering other questions related to coronavirus and referring to other entities that assist with the response. Solid waste large item pickup. As more people are at home, more people are cleaning out garages, they're cleaning out their yards, they're wanting to get rid of the larger items that they have sitting around the house. So we have seen 2,274 large item pickup requests come through 311, up 12% from last year. Solid waste questions. We're seeing more solid waste questions. A lot of these are around green waste recycling, people cleaning out the yards once again, and around questions regarding the hours for convenience centers. We are seeing over 1,900 of those calls from April 1st through the current. That is up 88% from last year for the same period. So a lot of people cleaning things out while they're at home, and they're wanting to get rid of those things that they can. Animal welfare, general information requests are up 75% from last year, 1,728. This is due primarily for people who are calling about appointments for pet adoptions and intake at animal welfare. In March, we also saw, as noted, significant increases in calls for info about the coronavirus. Overall, increase in calls of over 10%. Environmental health went up over 500% compared to March of last year. Significant increase. A lot of our coronavirus information is funneled through the environmental health provided by environmental health. So those calls up significantly, obviously, since last year. Reminder that 311 is here to answer your questions. We're here to make sure you have the information you need, or we can get you to the location that can give you the information you need. These are not only challenging, these are often confusing times. We are here to help you with that. You can also visit cabq.gov. Every page has a banner on it for coronavirus information. It has been told to me by a number of people throughout the country it's one of the best sites that they have seen. So I encourage you to go there. As Mayor talked about, for the Wi-Fi on wheels, you can go to cabq.gov/Wi-Fi specifically to get more information on that program. While we're here, I do want to give an update on abandoned vehicles. We spoke about this a little while ago, a couple months, probably several months. When Mayor Keller took office, there were thousands of unresolved abandoned vehicle cases. They had been sitting there. Many of them were several years old. Many of them, most of them by that point turned out to be duplicates or ghost reports. The vehicle was no longer in the location that it was reported. So instead of personally checking each one of those, we were seeing a 75 to 80% clearance rate just by looking. So instead of going out and checking every one of those, we closed the vast majority that were over several years old. I'm happy to report that versus thousands of open cases when Mayor took office, there are currently only 99 open abandoned vehicle cases. Only 23 of those cases were created before this month. So the vast majority of the open cases, 75%, are in this month. I'm also happy to report that thanks to a great One Albuquerque effort, collaboration between Department of Technology and Innovation 311 and parking enforcement and security and the Department of Municipal Development and APD, we have taken the time to close those cases on average. In October 2019, it was 58 days. January, it was down to 36 days, and February down to 25 days. So those cases are getting closed more quickly. They're getting addressed. We are at the point where APD is no longer needing to utilize services from the other departments. We are there in case the need arises again. But thanks to the One Albuquerque effort, APD is able to handle these on an ongoing basis now, and these are able to be resolved in a much quicker manner. As a reminder, we also are looking. We continually look for duplicate cases, and we're watching for any backlog that might start to build up again. And vehicles on public property are the ones we're specifically talking about today. Those are the ones that go to the cases that go to Albuquerque Police Department. Code enforcement takes on the cases that are on private property. But we're very pleased to be able to report that that through the efforts to clear the backlog and through some process analysis, The abandoned vehicles seem to be under control at this point. We'll be watching that and make sure it stays that way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Brian. Some great work by you and the 311 team during some tough times. And so appreciate that critical part of our city really delivering when we need it. Some wrapping up items that I do want to mention. First, tomorrow we're going to be focusing on local food and actually an update on our various markets and so forth. So stay tuned on that. And weather permitting too, and I think we're able to execute social distancing, et cetera, on site at the rail yard. So that's where we're going to try and be tomorrow. Now, a couple of things, ways to help. Want to encourage folks, we're still trying to step up for our neighbors, To'Hajiilee, the Navajo chapter just to the west of us. We are taking shelf-stable and non-perishable items that can be dropped off at our senior affairs offices or at EPD substations. And for more info, you can contact Agnes at her number is 764-6430. Agnes Vallejos. And so she's helping coordinate those efforts for To'Hajiilee. Now, I think with that, let me just mention too that we are, again, we've been talking about this for quite some time with respect to either domestic violence or child abuse. We do know that parental stress is very real and it's up all across the country. Nationally, there are some surveys coming out that we heard about through our partners at Johns Hopkins. Half of parents report being worried they can't pay bills. 60% reporting shouting or yelling at their kids in the last 2 weeks. 20% slapping or spanking their kids in the last 2 weeks. These numbers are much higher than normal. And again, I think we all understand why, but it's very important for us to be aware of that crisis and to remind folks to just try and be kind and patient with yourselves and with your children. And also, you know, if you can, keep kids engaged in whatever extracurricular, like the online school programs, is best that you can. So with that, again, we've shared numerous numbers, hotlines to call in any of those situations. So take a look at that great website that Brian mentioned if you are worried about someone or know about family members who might be in this situation. Okay, takeout this weekend was Ale Republic out in the East Mountains. All right, with that, questions from folks?
Yes. This is off topic. If anyone else has questions related, so how many businesses have been cited thus far for violating public health order?
So Albuquerque is actually only cited 2. There are tiers of conversations we have with them in terms of there's 3 levels of complaints and then a level of education. So we can get you the details on that, but we're around 700 almost total engagements with respect to telling people either how to do metering or you should be closed or you shouldn't be. So we're at just under 700 of those conversations. And people have been very receptive, which is why we've only had to issue 2 citations.
Okay. And then, only 2 that have actually been cited, right?
Yeah.
And then, is APD actively looking for businesses that are violating that order?
So we have a team of our planning department, our environmental health inspectors. So it's our building inspectors from planning, our food inspectors from environmental health, and then we have our fire marshal's office, and we have APD. And together, they actually coordinate like who's checking on what. So the answer is we have multiple city departments checking. And so sometimes it's about the metering, like at the big box stores, you know, so it depends on the office who's doing it. APD is usually the team of last resort that does that, but there is a small team that throughout the week they do go out and do proactive enforcement, but they're usually sent to where we've had the most complaints, and one of those other offices has already been.
And then some business, small businesses have told they feel like the city is not enforcing it on big box retailers. Is this any fair? How it enforces that word?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, and the question is about enforcement versus big box or small stores. We are absolutely enforcing everything the same. In fact, I think we've come down very hard on big box stores who weren't participating. A good example was Lowe's, Conn's Furniture. These are all ones that the city of Albuquerque had to dial up regional and corporate folks to bring into compliance. And so I think that's actually just a myth. In fact, it's the opposite. We're much more strict with the big folks. And we know that there's higher volume going through those, so that makes sense.
You said Lowe's, and what was the?
Conn's Furniture.
Okay,
And they were fine over the weekend, so they were able to, but last week, we had multiple conversations with those two entities.
We have one from Daniel of GOV. He said a group of mayors sent a letter to the governor expressing their support for her decision-making regarding this crisis. You weren't on the list. Can you explain why?
We very much support the governor and the public health order, and in fact, our city emergency clauses mirror the states and actually are a little bit further out. They're till May 15th, and so we're very supportive. There's all sorts of letters flying around about all sorts of things, so I think you heard it from me. We're very supportive of our governor.
We also have one from Chris McKee at KRQE News. They've heard about a planned rally at Civic Plaza on Friday of people who are pushing for the state to reopen businesses and the economy. What's your take on that type of rally, and what's your message to those potential rally goers?
Sure. Well, everyone has a right to their opinion and so forth. We've been very clear that in the city of Albuquerque, we know that we have to, number one, follow the state orders. And so people who have specific issues with the state orders, we're trying to echo those and problem solve. But the state is literally and legally in charge. We also have our own city ordinances in place. And right now we're trying to remind folks that, Albuquerque is the center of 1,000 square mile area. And so that means that we get, the hospitals are here, the airport's here, all of our major, whether it's grocery stores or shopping malls, we all get it, right? So the effects likely and the rules are going to have to be probably longer and different in Albuquerque. So right now they're the same as the state, but we're very prepared to do what is in the best interest of our city. And as we've seen all across the country, the more urban you are, the more dense you are in your region, the more you have to be careful about these public safety rules. So I would just say to folks who are going to come out, hey, maintain your social distancing, and freedom of speech is still a real thing. So I respect it. And I do know that we're looking at different ways on how we can keep the city running and keep businesses running as best that we can under those guidelines. But right now we've got to stay the course. The reason why we're in such good shape is because we're doing that. Lastly, the peak isn't expected till the end of April. And so it doesn't make any sense to make any decisions until we see what the world is like really next week. And then I think we can also have an informed discussion about what to do next. But until then, it's pretty clear we got to stay home.
Okay, and one more, and I'll let you. Okay, one more from KRQE, which is unrelated to this, but about the art bus closures. Are we considering making changes to the service at any point? Are you worried at all about people getting used to those buses not being on the route?
The question is about the art buses and our transit situation. Right now, since we've had the weekend schedule up and running all week, it's very limited service, but we supplemented it on Route 66. That's helped a lot. So right now, as of this week, we're actually in a very good place with transit where we're able to accommodate the demand, but not have extra drivers on the road and not have empty buses on the road. So right now, we're just going week by week, again, like a lot of this, and I think we're in a good place for transit, and we'll see what it looks like next week.
Not how many complaints are coming in for violating the order?
So remember, the orders primarily go to the state. The state of New Mexico is in charge of enforcement. We're just picking up specific key areas that are problematic in the city of Albuquerque. So we really are not addressing any one-off complaint. We're addressing systematic ones like big box stores or particular types of stores that weren't closing, like smoke shops last week. And so for us, the number of complaints you could probably get from our EOC, but by and large, almost all of them go to the state as they should. And then we take ones, again, that are systematic issues or like an immediate issue, like some illegal mass gathering at a park late night or something like that.
And with Lowe's and the other, in the furniture, are they now closed after speaking with them?
They are, yes. So after conversations last week, they're in compliance, as are smoke shops, as far as we know. Yeah. And massage parlors was the other one we're having trouble with.
And of those two, which ones were cited?
The one citation was given to a smoke shop, and I'm not sure about the second one. You'd have to follow up with the EOC on that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much. Thank you.